And we are back for the second season in a row with another 5 bold predictions. And we talked a little bit before we got going on this. I don't know that we can even limit it to 5. I've got ideas. I know CoachFury's got ideas. We're about to just launch in and give you our predictions to let you know how this entire season's going to play out. I told you last year, it went viral. We put it on the Wolverine Studios, Twitter, whatever it was. Like, when I called that number 1 overall center to UK without a visit, it happened, right? So, you know this is a source of information. Now, we're going to forget, for the time being, the fact that I said that Kansas was going to have the best recruiting class of last year. We're just going to forget that. We're just going to leave it out. But outside of that, I got a ton of good information, and I'm going to throw it over to CoachFury. Let him talk a little bit, amp himself up, give a little bit of props. What do you got over there, CoachFury?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say we were about a 30% ratio last year in terms of our predictions. Always going to happen when we have a first season in the league and everyone's finding their feet in terms of the game. Like myself, I'm completely new to the college basketball scene in terms of the game. Haven't played it for a few years, so we're going to get some predictions completely wrong. We're going to get some predictions completely right. But I think I'd like to kind of start talking about some of the big blue blood teams, as they're called, in the CBGM. And well, I know we talked about this cards before we came on the show. But I want to start off with a big one and sort of mention to everyone that my first prediction really.
Before we get too far started off, because I know Chris is still sending out tweets. We're still trying to get people up live.
Okay. I'll hold that then. I'll hold that thought and just say
that's right.
Blue Bloods are an interesting pack of teams this year.
Oh, absolutely, the Blue Bloods, and that's what everybody wants to hear about, right? Like, it's okay. Yeah, Southeast Missouri State Technical Institute is okay. That's your school. You do your thing. Everybody wants to know, how are the Blue Bloods doing? What's Kansas doing? What's North Carolina? What are they doing again? What's Duke doing? All those sorts of things. Chris is in chat. He says the audio sounds great. So we figured out that issue, which is definitely
that's his first bold prediction, isn't it? We'll get the audio sorted second time round. That's the first prediction we've got right.
I think so. First bold prediction. We will fix the audio. We got that one. Nailed it. So I'm trying to think back to last year. I know I had the UK recruit. I know I said Agalia was going to have a top 5 recruiting class. He ended up number 2. I called Kansas is the top class. Missed that one completely. I think one of them was something about the AI not being as dangerous as they kind of looked at the time. I don't remember what the other bold prediction was. Do you? I don't know if you watched that video.
I remember. I remember it very clearly, Cards, what you said. You made a very bold prediction in terms of Notre Dame. I can't say that team name, unfortunately. It's a curse of mine, but you certainly mentioned that they were going to have the best recruiting class, if I remember rightly.
I think I called Notre Dame was going to be ahead of where we would expect them. I called Kansas as the top class because at the time they actually were the favorites for Kurt Linney. They landed, was it Jacobson, the small forward? Maybe Mark or Mike Jacobson, something like that. He was a really, really high class small forward. They landed him, but they missed on Lenny. But at the time they were favored for him, and they were favored for at least one other guy that they missed on. So I know I called Kansas as my top class, but I called Notre Dame as out kicking their coverage, essentially. Coolest Jedi, what is up? No, you haven't missed anything yet. CoachFury was about to drop his first bold prediction, and I asked him to hold on to it. So he's over there busting at the seams, ready to let loose with this, and we're holding on, making sure Chris gets out the word, getting as many people in as we can before we go full steam here.
Cards. Whilst we're waiting, then should we just, before we dive in, obviously we're waiting for people to turn up as such. I would be interested to know, what was your biggest surprise from last year in terms of the league, be it team, be it player, be it a particular coach, human coach? What was the thing that sort of stood out for you that made you sort of surprised? in our first season.
The most interesting thing from last year, that's a really interesting question. Because when you get into these multiplayer leagues and when you dive into this type of game, again, I've already mentioned, to me, it's a lot about recruiting, bringing your own players in, and you're just sort of jumping in on like other people's players, right? So to be honest, I don't think this might be like a cheesy answer. It's not necessarily any of the results, right? It's not anything that happened, but it was more about like how invested I got in some of the players that weren't even on my team. Like the guard from Iowa, was it Iowa State? I think you know who I'm talking about. Like how invested you get in these guys that you really have nothing to do with. The guard from Iowa State was certainly one of them. He was an absolute player. The guys at Gonzaga, I know Matt in the help channel and a couple of the other Discord channels, he reached out, he asked some questions. We provided some advice, and like those guys at Gonzaga, just like how invested you get in those guys. So to me, the really interesting thing is when you've got more people, when you've got, I mean, what do we have, 30, 40, 50 people? When you have all of those people, you bring them together, you have conversations daily, weekly, whatever it is, you have streams, like the amount of investment in these fictitious players is killer. It's awesome. I love it. I absolutely love it. But let's throw it back to you. We're only at 4 viewers right now. You got a little bit more time to amp. What surprised you?
Okay, so I think the thing that I'll start perhaps not with the thing that surprised me the most first. The thing that I enjoyed probably the most, that I didn't realize I would enjoy the most, was just turning up to the Discord channel and just looking at the memes on a daily basis. I have to say the creativity of the various coaches in the league to come up with a random set of memes that were just from on point every single day about whatever was going on that day was just fantastic, and it made me laugh so much through the tournament time, through Michigan getting completely bummed in the tournament and being absolutely rubbish, to basically the recruiting class and my frustrations around my own personal recruiting class. It was just fun to see just some of the comic side that came out of it. And I didn't anticipate that to be a part of the league. Whenever you have a new multiplayer league start up, you never quite know whether it's going to be a completely casual league where no one really cares and gets invested, and it's sort of those leagues in my opinion tend to fade away, and you tend to get really uptight professional leagues where it's very, very serious and everyone talks seriously and it's not as enjoyable, and then again you get a core group of people who stay, but a lot of people just bounce around because it's not everyone wants this to be completely hardcore serious type of thing.
That's right. I think we've got a great mix of both, where we've got hardcore activity, but we've got a group of people that are ready to have some fun, ready to throw some memes out. Like, I thought some of the memes were great. Like, all right, so what was your favorite meme, or one or two of your favorite memes that you saw over the course of the first year?
Oh man, I mean there was quite a lot. I mean, to be honest with you, the one that made me chuckle probably the most was probably the one that someone put up a view actually cards in terms of, I can't remember the actual character, but it's an actor, a goofy actor with a baseball cap backwards, and someone referencing, there's cards going to do his recruiting class. That made me laugh. And then the usual ones about people sort of having their head turned by 5-star recruits, and being dragged away because they'd got no chance of getting them, etc. So they're probably the funniest ones I enjoyed the most.
I always like distracted boyfriend, that meme, and the guy in bed who the girl is like, he's probably thinking about other women or whatever. It doesn't matter what you put on those. They're always great memes, right? They're always funny. It's hard to mess those up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so in terms of the thing that surprised me the most, I would probably have to say the thing that surprised me the most was probably how interesting it was to try and just have a go at trying to mock up a draft for this league, in terms of who was going pro and where they were going.
Yeah.
Clearly, I got some things right with my predictions, some things completely and utterly wrong. And and one thing that probably surprised me the most was that I've never seen if we're just talking purely about the MBGM, so the pro version that Chris runs alongside this, I've never seen a what they call like a D League, is it like a G League sort of superstar player? These players that don't go in college and just play in the G League for a season and then go in the draft.
You talking about
I've
the guy
never
that
seen
drafted
one
like
so
second?
good. Have you seen one better than Anderson?
No, that's crazy.
I've never seen a guy put up 45 points in a G League
Absolutely.
and come into the Pro League and look
Absolutely
that
crazy.
good.
All right, we're about 10 minutes in. I think that we've got the viewers that we're going to have. Let's get this thing underway. Let me bounce over to the recruit players page. I should probably take it off my call watch list. Go to the full list here. All right, we're spinning up. I don't know if you're seeing on Twitch or not.
Yep, I can see that loading.
We tried to get CoachFury a live stream through Discord, and the quality was terrible. So he's just following along on Twitch. But I'm going to get us kicked off here. We're going for bold predictions, right? We called the episode 5 bold predictions. That's the idea behind it. But we're probably just going to spin for a while, right? We're just going to throw things out there and see what happens. But guys, last year somebody made a bold predictions episode and said that there was the number 1 player in the nation who was going to the University of Kentucky, and he wasn't even going to take in-home visits. It wasn't even going to happen. He was just a guaranteed Kentucky lock. Now, I'm coming back to you this year. Same guy, same information. I'm looking at the same thing. I have the same info from last year. Cards, number 1 bold prediction for the CBGM second year. We're sitting here on August 14th of 2021. Guys, you got to remember, we don't have as much information as we had last year because last year we were already on the 21st. We already had the updated top 10 lists. So these are even bolder predictions. Chris, you need to rename the episode. These are even bolder predictions. Cards number 1, even bolder prediction for 2021. Johnny Holloway, the center out of Tennessee, 6'9", 278, number 2 overall, number 1 in your hearts. He's a card, baby. He's a card. Johnny Holloway is coming to the University of Louisville. It's over. I told you, anybody that was on the Discord for the past couple of weeks, I've told you, you had to be so concerned about Johnny Holloway coming into play with Mike Gray because it would just be over. And now it is. Nobody else is showing up. When you look at Johnny Holloway, you can see here, I mean, I'm sure I'm giving away, some people don't have access to this information. I don't care who it is. Like, I don't care. Look who's hot. That's all it is. It's Louisville, Johnny Holloway. The top center in the country is going to come in here, and next year, like, you had better hope that Mike Gray goes pro. I don't think he will, but you better hope for it, because otherwise, I'm going to send the ball into the post next year, and nobody can stop it. Bold prediction number 1 for this second season of the CBGM. Johnny Holloway to the University of Louisville. CoachFury, what are you thinking?
Just before I talk about your hot prediction, in terms of Holloway as a player, I think the fascinating thing about him is he is a really interesting post player, simply because obviously he has the inside shot, he has the defense, he has all of those things you would want from an elite prospect. But that passing ability for a center is fascinating, and whoever gets him, to be honest with you, I'm going to be very interested to see how he turns out, because he could be a guy you could run, a various different schemes that you can run in college basketball around him for a point forward sort of situation, which would be interesting to see if that was effective or not. In terms of Holloway, I mean, you just showed it up there that you're the only guy who's hot on him at the minute. My biggest question is, why has nobody else chased him? Is it a case of Louisville's just gone in hard with him? Very, very bemusing that nobody else is particularly like the likes of Kansas, Wisconsin, Kentucky, Memphis are kind of bit far behind.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting you bring that up. And I mean, anybody that's watched streams that I do, I'm typically looking at camp performances, and I'll sort of, I mean, I don't take too much of these scouted ratings into consideration. I think they're a great indicator of what someone is good at. I don't think they're a great indication of what their actual ability is, but the fact that he's got an A in passing is something I hadn't even seen, and that's an excellent observation. He would be a really, really interesting player to put into some of these offenses where it values passing and handling ability in the big men.
Princeton offense would be fascinating with him.
Absolutely. It would be. Absolutely.
I mean, the only thing I would say is his athleticism is a bit of a concern. So, in terms of if you can't really run him into much of a fast court offense, But I doubt you would do that if you had him and Gray together. So
yeah, no, that's totally true. Definitely interesting, but I think as of right now, I'm feeling good about this one. So that's bold prediction number 1. Bold prediction number 2, I'm sending over to you. What do you got?
You want me to start off with the one that I was going to start with? Do you want to throw that cannonball in there to begin with?
Start wherever you want to start.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna I'm gonna unpin the grenade and I'm gonna throw it in here and just blow up the chat in a minute. So my bold prediction number 1 is that, well, Chris on GM Games has kind of got it bang on the chat here, but essentially I think the Blue Bloods are going to have their worst performance that we've seen to date in recruiting. So I'm talking likes of Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, Gonzaga, Baylor, all of them I think are going to have a very, very bad recruiting class.
Wow. Now,
so,
have you?
What do you base that on?
Cards? Have you looked through the interest list? Have you looked through their offer list? Where are you pulling that information from? What are you thinking?
So I've looked. So bear in mind that some of these are on AI, I believe. So it's very difficult to tell for those ones. But when you look at if you look at the top guys, so top 20, 30 guys in the recruiting class, and you look at where their interest is, when you look through these big name programs, they're either cold, some of them are warm, but there's no hots in there. And when I look at where they're hot to, in terms of, as you said, for example, Holloway, they are not going to any of these big programs. They are going to some of the mid-tier teams, which is going to completely shake up the CBGM, in my opinion, next year.
Wow. Just to clarify, you're not saying Holloway and Louisville are a mid-tier team, right?
I would say outside of Louisville.
All right, so outside of Louisville. Thank you for the clarification. We desperately needed that for the interest and structure of the stream. We had to have that. Are there any of the blue blood teams that you're seeing in particular that don't have a lot of interest? Because I can definitely call out one, but I'm curious as to what you've seen.
I mean, the one that you're going to mention, I think we talked about before we came on the stream. I mean, the other ones that worry me are, the ones that I've kind of mentioned, to be honest with you. Kentucky worries me, Duke worries me, Baylor, Gonzaga, Kansas. All these teams worry me. They just, when you look through the recruiting aspect, recruiting class on their team, they don't have any. All of the top recruits, they're listed in there as interest, but they're all cool. So that immediately would concern me if I was a top program and I'm reliant on getting top tier players in. That's why I have the prestige. That if I can't recruit those guys, you're going to be fighting with a lot more teams for the guys below that.
Chuck Exotic in chat said Holloway was my muse for the not worthwhile meme. Chuck, I gotta say that meme was hilarious. Or it was like the guy tapping on the car saying like, "Oh, you can fit a lot of not worthwhiles in here." Did you see that one today?
That was a good one. That was a very good one. Yes, I did enjoy that one.
I think that might be the meme I've enjoyed the most that I didn't post myself. Like, I always tickle myself, but as far as other people posting memes, that one was really, really funny.
I would say though, guys, Go and find another conference, another division other than the Big Ten. I mean, come on. There's other ones out there that are just as bad.
Hey, the thing is, the Big Ten's gotta perform. Like y'all gotta perform.
Hey,
you had plenty of opportunities last year. You got absolutely raided by Notre Dame, North Carolina, and anybody else that felt like pulling a Midwest recruiting report. You just got bombed, so you got to do better this year.
We were dealt a bad hand. When you look at the coaching quality in the Big Ten last year, it was subpar in comparison to the other teams.
That's all started off with equal coaches.
This year,
that's
been addressed.
Mm-hmm. All right.
What was your team? What was your team that you said that you're most worried about in terms of the big blue blood teams?
Oh, yeah. My team is definitely Kentucky. I've searched through, I go through, I just get bored, right? I get bored through the day. And so I look through recruiting classes and see, like, each team, like, significant teams that I want to keep up with. Like, I always check on Agalia, just checking on you, my man, seeing what you're doing. I always check on Chris. I always check on Kentucky, and up until the last week, they didn't have anybody. Like, if you look over here on the recruiting class, right? We can just look at it right now, because it's going to show exactly what I saw. And if you go to Kentucky recruiting class and you come over here, like, they finally they got Johnny Holloway warm right there, and that's it. And so this looks rather rough. So one of two things are happening here. Either Kentucky is targeting players that I don't have reports on, or the owner just isn't active. And if it's the first thing, if it's just that I don't have information on these guys, okay. But if he's not active, Kentucky is going to get blown up. They're going to get blown up. They're not competing for Barry Barrett. Hate to say it. This dude's got interest in a lot of other schools. They're not competing for Ivan Tatum. Tatum is warm or hot on a lot of other schools. It's a long shot whether they can actually compete for Eli. So, I mean, yeah, maybe they can steal Holloway from me. Maybe. But nothing else on this list. Like, this is a bad list. You remember me talking about Duke last year and how bad they were, and you can go and look at their freshman class. They suck. This is the same sort of thing. This is bad news across the board. Kentucky has a very bad recruiting class so far.
It's a concern that they are swinging so huge on 5-star prospects. That's a concern. If you've got to this stage and they are, all cool, which you can see there, and one warm, I would be slightly worried if I was a big team. I would be thinking, well, what's my second or third option now? Maybe I need to cut my losses, except that I'm not going to have this elite prestige class that I was aiming for, and I need to go and look at my local region and snag the best players in there.
Oh, not only that, but like some of these guys, I mean, like Holloway, you can see like Louisville's hot on him, and like taking myself out of it. Like just you don't want to be warm on a guy who's hot on somebody else, right? All of the rest of these guys have more interest in other schools than they do in Kentucky. So that's what makes me think like, man, that's a rough list. So, all right. So we've gone through 2 bold predictions. We got Holloway to Louisville. That's my call. Your call was the Blue Bloods striking out. We're on to bold prediction number 3, right?
We are indeed.
Bold prediction number 3. Coming courtesy of Cards. North Carolina does it again. North Carolina does it again. I'm telling you, y'all all saw what happened last year. And now that was a combination of things. That was the brutal AI recruiting thing. The user came in late. All of these other issues led to UNC just dominating. And I can't say they're going to dominate again like they did the first time. But let's go take a look. And I don't feel like I'm revealing anything here. Like, anybody can scroll through and look at these lists. And if you're not doing it, you should be. But let's go take a
Probably
look.
a great tip for anyone who's watching this channel now. If you're not scrolling through and looking at other teams' offers, who their known interest is, particularly in your region, you're missing a huge piece of information.
1,000%. That is 100% correct. But let's look here. First of all, North Carolina, the number 1 rated team in the preseason. Okay. Oh, let me get my device going. I started getting notifications and nonsense on there. So North Carolina, number 1 in the preseason, which, I mean, y'all all know. Dan McCray, Kurt Linney, it's going down in Chapel Hill this year, period. No way around it. But they also, the user for North Carolina did some smart stuff last year, because after he landed that monster class, he went out and grabbed Christian Harris, a really good guard, probably a 4-year guy. Now, look at what he's doing this year. And he doesn't have his offers out yet, which I can't say anything about because I don't have my offers out yet. I'm waiting to get the Memphis, we already got the Memphis and America East scouting reports, camp reports, whatever. But I'm waiting for August 21st to see that updated top 10 list. So he may be doing the same exact thing, but let's start scrolling through who he has interest in. I mean, look at this. Kevin Mitchell, top 25 at Indy, top 10 at Big Apple, exceptional center. Ivan Tatum, this dude, I don't have notes on him, but I know that Ivan Tatum is a superstar. And then we also got Mikal Robinson. Oh my gosh. Y'all, Mikal Robinson, I know he was top 5 in the big, the East Coast Jam? I know that he was top 5 there. I don't know if he was MVP or not, but I targeted this guy early. I'm like, oh yeah, big, East Coast Jam guy. Let's do it. No dice. Everybody has jumped in on him. He's got offers from not North Carolina. He's got offers from Pitt, Syracuse, all kinds of schools up and down the East Coast. Mikal Robinson, hell of a prospect, hot on North Carolina. So when you see who North Carolina is hot on, which is basically the 2 absolute best prospects on the East Coast, and then you add in what they're warm on, North Carolina's doing it again. Bold prediction number 3 out of the stream. North Carolina does it again. CoachFury, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of how you should run your program if you are a high prestige team. You pick a coastline that you're in region of, and you hit it hard, and that's essentially what they're doing here. There's no reason not to suspect that North Carolina is going to come away again with the best recruiting class. As you've pointed out there, they've picked up some really good elite talent, and this year. And I think the question is going to be about, they obviously had a good recruiting class last year because of the AI. This year, obviously, they've got the human coaching. Apologies, I can't remember his name, but it seems like he's doing a phenomenal job in terms of trying to attract interest to North Carolina. The question is going to be now is just, can they put it all together on the court if they manage to bring these guys in again next season?
Yeah, I think that they will. I think that the user is Nini, N-I, something like that. But I'm not 100%.
Doing a great job.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. This is excellent. So where I went and looked at Kentucky and said everything they're doing is wrong, I'm coming in here and looking at North Carolina, and now they don't have any offers out yet, but aside from that point, everything they're doing down here looks right. So, we give and we take away on these streams. I'm giving UNC a ton of love right here. I'm not going to go back and give Kansas any love after they screwed me over last season, but I'm going to, North Carolina, they did well last year. I'm going to give them some more love this year. I mean, can it possibly go wrong? Maybe. I don't think so, but We're gonna be cheering on the Tar Heels here, but I'm in the ACC, so maybe I should root against this. I don't know if it's more important for my predictions to be true or for me to be successful in the season, but either way, we're moving on here. We're blasting out the bold predictions. We're through 3 of them. CoachFury, give the crowd what they want. Give them another bold prediction for the 2021 season. What do you got?
So I'm gonna add one in here that's kind of related to my team, Michigan, in terms of my region, and I think the bold prediction I'm going to throw out there here is that the top tier talent that is within the region of the big, within my region, is going to remain within my region. So where I talk about some of the top prospects, if you pull up the top recruiting class list, you'll see a lot of them are within the Michigan area, to be perfectly honest with you, this year, which is crazy. I think most of those guys are going to stay either with Michigan or Michigan State this year.
So CoachFury is predicting a comeback for the Big Ten. And anybody that's been in the Discord has seen, the worst 2 people engaged in this activity is me and Chris. Me and Chris have been dogging the Big Ten. Just absolutely making fun of them relentlessly and ruthlessly, and it's been really fun. I think it's created a lot of good memes. I know the Big Ten guys are getting sick of it. And I've got to say, 100%, I agree with CoachFury. It was actually one of the things that we talked about before we got on stream tonight. One of my predictions before he ever said a word, one of the things that I thought was going to happen is the Big Ten is bouncing back. Like last year, they just got dog walked, right? Like any good prospect in their region got stolen, whether it was Notre Dame, whether it was North Carolina, didn't matter who it was. The Midwest was just a free-for-all for people to come in and steal recruits. Not happening this year. Guys, Michigan and Michigan State, both of them are on 2 of the top players in the country. I think is now, CoachFury, you're going to have to jump in here and help me. Is Barry Barrett one of those?
Yeah, so the 2 that Michigan and Michigan State are fighting it out for is Garrett Berry. It's obviously a national ranked 14 player.
Berry. Okay, yeah.
And then Robert Samuel, the national ranked 5th player.
Yes, Samuel. He was the Indy MVP, right?
Yes, yeah. So the Indy MVP was in the Michigan region, and no surprise that both the Michigan teams are doing absolutely everything they can to entice him to come to their team.
And now I know I've looked through most of the Big Ten teams' recruit classes and that sort of thing. Like everybody's offering those guys. Like everybody's offering the same guys, right? Everybody's on them. But where is the interest?
Well, I mean, look, in terms of if we just talk about those 2, to be honest with you, to begin with. So if we start with Robert Samuel, so the Indy MVP, he is, well, interesting caveat actually in the last sim was that Xavier's dived in as the hot team now. But in terms of the list of Big Ten teams, you've got Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Ohio, Indiana, all in there fighting it out. So who knows what's going to happen there? But I would be surprised if Robert Samuel moves out of region based on that. If we talk about Garrett Berry, so there's several teams that are hot on him. Obviously, Michigan State are kind of the top 2 in there. And then there's an interesting set of, teams outside the Big Ten sort of fighting over him. But again, the hot teams seem to be within the region for him. But I mean, let's just quickly talk about some of the other teams as well, because I mean, Derek Womack is an interesting prospect who's got a lot of interest, and I think he will stay within the region. He's from Indianapolis. I think he's going to stay. You've got the likes of
Womack's. Let's see, full recruiting list. Womack's going to stay in the region, but I think he's a hard Notre Dame lean, right?
I think he might possibly Indiana might come in and snag him based on his preferences, is what I would say to that. Or maybe Wisconsin. There's two big teams fighting out for him within region, so we'll see what happens there. I think, I mean, if I take the Big Ten very quickly, just as an overall sort of thing, I mean, in my opinion, from looking at it, it's probably the most active sort of division in the CBGM, just in terms of coach engagement, because there's a lot of guys in there that are incredibly active and fighting out for different prospects. And when you look at where they're fighting it out on, obviously it's within region, but people are being clever and not necessarily all chasing the same guys this year. Whereas last year they were all chasing the same one or two guys.
Everybody in the Big Ten last year offered Dan McCray. And there was only one school he could go to. Chris says, everybody silent on the Indy MVP. We were just talking about the Indy MVP. We were just talking about him going to Michigan and the possibilities there. But you see here, again, Notre Dame. CoachFury was talking about Garrett Berry to Michigan, Michigan State, wherever. He's hot on Notre Dame. Agalia, I don't know how he does it, but he's doing it. He's one of the 3 schools hot on Garrett Berry. How do you feel about Agalia and Notre Dame being in that Midwest region and just sucking up recruits from the Big Ten? CoachFury, are you there?
I'm here. Apologies. I think I got cut off there for some reason. I didn't quite catch the last bit you just said.
Yeah, so we talked about Garrett Berry and how, there's a lot of schools that are in on him. And so I was saying Garrett Berry, hot on Michigan State, Michigan, and Notre Dame. I was asking you how you feel about Notre Dame being in that region and stealing some of those recruits out of the Big Ten.
I'm fairly comfortable with that, given Notre Dame's performance last year. I know that's a bit of a sly attempt at saying that they didn't do much last year, they won't do much damage this year, and that probably will come back to bite me. But let's throw it out there.
I like it. All right, so I think we're through 4 bold predictions so far, and I think it's probably about time to break out number 5. So, I mean, I'm just gonna call it, like I call players that I think are going to go to schools. I call schools that I think are going to do good. Notre Dame's probably going to do good again. That's not really all that bold at this point. Bold prediction number 5. We look at the schools that did well last year and the schools that did poor last year. Take all that into consideration. I've looked through just all of the recruit information from this year. And bold prediction number 5, Pitt is going to fall off a cliff from what they did last year. I thought that Pitt was extremely solid last year. I thought that they had some very good commitments. Jared Robinson, the freshman point guard, obviously being one of them. Edmund Parquet sucks. Do I have a bad...
I would say, Cards, just on that, Pitt might have a difficulty recruiting this year, but they probably have one of the best strategy coaches in the CBGM from what I've seen.
How are they going to compete with this roster, though? Hey, who's going to play defense or rebound on the inside?
I'm going to be honest with you. I've seen teams last year perform well above their rating core as well, and guys, even 2-star guys, pull out really, really good performances. I think the concern they've got there is they've going to be so reliant on maybe one guy offensively. I'll be interested to see how Pittsburgh does just in terms of coaching. But that this will be a really good test to see if he can validate how well he did last year. In terms of, I think he runs a very interesting system from what I've understand speaking to him, and I think there's some benefits to that you don't necessarily need a bunch of stars to run that system, but I don't think it'll be as much as a drop off as you're making here.
I don't know about, look at their inside. They only have 3 scholarship players at power forward or center, and the best one is 2.5 stars, Willie Reichert. So I mean, he can kind of score, kind of play defense. The more interesting thing to me here is because people lost their minds about Pitt recruiting last year, right? And I mostly agreed with them on the strength of Jared Robinson, who I thought was an excellent point guard prospect and still is. 3 stars. I mean, he comes in as a freshman, as a playmaker with a 94 passing. That is sick. This dude is a wizard with the basketball. Jared Robinson is an excellent prospect. But I've got real concerns here about Edmond Parquet. The entire Atlantic East region seemed to try to recruit this guy. I didn't have recruiting notes on him, so I just assumed he was good. He looks like trash.
I would, honestly, if I was Pittsburgh, I'd redshirt him. Don't need him.
No, he'll go pro. He's going to go pro.
Would he? Would he
Yes.
really?
He's
I mean, I
ranked
had a
number
guy
14th
last
in the
year.
country.
I can't remember his name now. I've got who I redshirted, and he was a 1.5 star, 5-star prospect. He came back this year. Granted, he was absolutely trash. He's actually worse than he was last year.
Right.
Don't know how that happened, but I would gamble and just redshirt him.
Well, the thing is with the guy,
He's not
like
going to add
this,
anything to this team.
Like in my opinion, I think he'll go pro early. So if you want if you want to just like take the gamble like you're saying, then the thing to do is to not redshirt him. It's to play him and to play him like limited minutes as some kind of backup so that he gains some kind of experience and can be better as a sophomore, maybe even a junior. No way.
What makes you think he's going to go pro cards?
Because he was ranked number 14th in the country.
So just purely on his high school rank?
That's 100% correct. In this game, the high school rank absolutely dominates who goes pro and who doesn't.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Interesting. I didn't know that. But yeah, in terms of the Pittsburgh, I wouldn't even put him in the rotation. They've got better players to fit in the rotation. And I know you mentioned that you were worried about their sort of front court presence. I would just run small ball and just run a small guy in at the sort of power forward position.
Still got a rebound.
Bulk up the center position and go that way and sort of front load it with several different wing players and see how that works.
Yeah, I definitely think they're going to want to go heavy on the guards and the small forwards and whatnot because they do have talent. But I think that this player in particular is a bust. I don't think he's going to do anything for them. And not only that, but let's go over and look at their recruit class because what I'm really getting at is their recruit class. So they're in on Mikel Robinson, who I said before I think is a stellar recruit, but I don't think they have the best shot at him. North Carolina's hot on him. So looking rough there. Then we look over here, Carl Phelan. I don't have notes on him. Kevin Mitchell, I definitely do. Top 25 at Indy, top 10 in the Big Apple. But they got competition here as well. Not necessarily like, with Robinson, other schools have a better shot. With Mitchell, they're relatively even. But here's the thing. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, you got 3 scholarships. You got one guy that you're probably not getting. You got one guy who God only knows how good he is because I don't have any notes. And then you got this guy who's a 50-50 shot as to whether you get him or not. I don't know that that's a great strategy. I don't know that that's a great class. What are your thoughts, Coach Fury?
Well, I mean, it's difficult. I think with a team like Pittsburgh, you're in a unique situation where you kind of have to roll the dice a little bit with what you've got coming in next season in terms of who you've made offers to. So I can understand why he's gone after Robinson because he's got warm interest. Maybe he can push him up to hot with a visit, and who knows? I don't know anything about him, so I can't find anything else. I think it's positive to see that he's going after two front court players, and I imagine he's going to try and stack the front court players because his guard situation is fairly strong in my opinion. So I think what he's thinking here is that if he can get another wing in who can sort of play the position 2 to 3 and 4, and then a couple of front court players, then he'll be back in a stronger position next year. I think the thing that concerns me the most, though, is if you look at the known interest section, there's not a lot else out there from what we can see that's really interesting coming to Pittsburgh. And that concerns me because he doesn't have a plan B or a plan C.
Ivan Tatum, who I've already said is being being recruited by pretty much the entire East Coast. Heck of a player there. Yeah, I'm stopping on some of these other warms, and I'm not seeing it. So I think, and this isn't. I don't want to bash on the player that's controlling Pitt in Kansas.
I think
because
the saving grace for Pittsburgh.
I don't think there's anything
I honestly think the
wrong.
guy who's coaching Pittsburgh is a phenomenal strategist coach from what I've seen. So
That's absolutely correct.
I would have faith in him, even if he didn't get a good recruiting class, that he can keep Pittsburgh in as a top 25 team.
That's absolutely correct. I 100% agree with you. I think that I agree with that 150%. My only thing with the bold prediction is, like, last year their recruits seemed really stellar, and this year I don't have as much faith in them. That's why I'm discounting it here. But you know what? Prove me wrong. Go ahead and bring in Mikal Robinson. Go ahead and bring in Kevin Mitchell. The entire Southeast region is after this guy. He's a heck of a player. He was top 10 at Big Apple. He was top 25 at Indy Elite. Heck of a player. You're targeting great recruits. I'm not trying to argue that Pitt is doing anything wrong. I'm just saying I don't think they have as good of a chance as bringing in these guys as what they brought in last year. That's the only thing that I'm saying with the bold prediction here. So, all right. So what else you got, Coach Fury? Who you bringing in? Let's go take a look at Michigan. Let's see what their interest is. Let's see who their offers are out to. Let's see here. What do you got? What are you thinking?
Well, you'll probably see that I've got two hard offers out at the minute to the two guys that we've talked about. I think I'm warm on one, hot on the other. Basically, I have to roll the dice with the MVP, Indy MVP, just because he's within the Michigan region. I have to. I'm not going to.
That's Robert Samuel.
I'm not going to get another chance, am I, to get an Indy MVP in who's in my region? I just have to at least see that one out, in my opinion. Garrett Berry, I think, is going to be interesting because he's hot on both us and Michigan State. So we'll see what happens there. Like I said, I think he will remain in region. Samuel, I think, still will remain in region, but Xavier has just started to worry me because they've just appeared on the radar last sim.
Yeah, it's always weird when a player has that awesome visit at a school, right? It can come out of nowhere.
Literally did come out of nowhere. I don't even think Xavier was on the top 10, or was maybe 10. I don't remember.
No. They had to have been fourth already because the top 10 lists don't update until next week.
Oh, okay. Well, I honestly don't remember looking at it and thinking it was too much of a worry based on his preferences, but maybe I got that one slightly wrong. And I think anyone who's been watching my episodes, I mean, I only put one out this week, which was the, I think, second sim of the recruiting class, where I sort of essentially said I'm looking to replace my front court guys because they're seniors, and then I'm so desperate to get a decent point guard in. I would literally give away 3 scholarships to get one decent point guard in at this stage, knowing that was such a huge challenge for us last season. So that is an area that I am looking at with interest, really.
Yeah, I'm absolutely right there with you in trying to find a point guard because like my point guards are crap. I sort of lucked in. We can go ahead and take a look. Oh, that's not me. I'm not scared to show my roster ratings or whatever on this sort of thing. So I sort of just ran out of options last year and had to. I brought in actually both. Let me close this. I brought in Bill Grimes and Jason Capel. I had no information on either of them. But we take a look here at Bill Grimes. I mean, that's a decent scoring rating, an acceptable defensive rating. His passing leaves something to be desired. I think his ball handling actually is better than the senior that just graduated. So, like, for a freshman coming out of nowhere, I'm feeling pretty good about Bill Grimes. So, sometimes you just throw offers out there and hope you get lucky. I did the same thing with Capel. You take a look at him, pretty much garbage. I did the same thing with Andy Randall. Absolute crap. But Bill Grimes worked out. So sometimes it works out. I mean, and that's a freshman. So I'm hoping from a youth standpoint that he can develop and turn into something. Because I've got this decent junior here. He can score. He can play defense. So yeah, it's always interesting trying to pull guys in at the last minute. You never know exactly what you're going to get. I think I've got a shot here with these guys. But let's go take a look at Coach Fury's team. Let's see what you got. What do you got this year? Like, where are you going to finish this year?
I would love to finally win the Big Ten Conference tournament this year, if I'm honest.
You're going to win the Big Ten? Okay.
I think we'll be in the national tournament again. And I think we'll probably be in the top 4 of the Big Ten, is where I would have us pitched. Mainly because I've managed to get rid of Larry Beek, who is an absolutely atrocious shooting shooting guard for us, and Osler, who was a really good defender. But again, I had to do so much preference work through the entire season to even get him above 30% shooting. So in this year, I think I'm positively optimistic about my guard play outside of the point guard situation. The sort of the guard and wing position is going to be fun, but I mean we've got a clear superstar in Bernie Sweetwine, so we're gonna have to utilize him as best we can. And Michael Belez, to be fair, has developed very nicely in the off season, so that front court too is going to be very fun to watch.
I just pulled up the profile on Bernie Sweetwine. This dude is a monster. 90 inside shooting, 73 in scoring. Both his rebounding attributes are above 90, and his defense is at 97, along with the defensive attribute. Jeez. Bernie Sweetwine looks like an absolute guaranteed first-round draft pick in the NBA, right?
He's developed massively from last season as well. So I think he was probably 80s across the board last year. Maybe the inside shooting was still 90. That's a huge improvement through the season.
Yeah.
And we saw it kind of materialize during the season, because I think his numbers kind of just went through the roof when we got, I want to say, like 2/3 through the regular season play.
Yeah.
So he's come back and he's only got better.
Yeah, that looks like an absolute star on the inside. I'm just looking across the rest of this. It looks like you're solid inside. And that, like you said, the point guard thing is going to be where you're going to struggle.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful Colin Brown, who we recruited last year, might be able to address that situation for us. I mean, we were playing Mark Iacona in there last year, who was turning the ball over, I want to say 6 times a game average. So we would turn the ball over about 20 to 22 times a game, which is just absolutely terrible. So I'm hoping Colin Brown can at least be a bit of a filler guy for us there this year.
141 turnovers last year. You figure roughly 30 games. Yeah, that's 4-ish a game. So, yeah, that's really tough. All right, so do you have anything else for us? Anything else you want to look at? Anything else you want to address? Anything else that you want to get to before? Because CBGM here in a couple hours is going to hit the top 10 lists. And then in about 2 days, we're going to get the answers on where these recruits are actually going. No more predictions, just happening. So anything else you want to call, predictions you want to make about the season, about the teams, about the recruits, anything you got?
If you go back to the full recruiting list again for us.
Yeah. Coolest Jedi says, watch out for the Illini recruiting class.
He's been doing
what are they
going
to do? Beat us at tic-tac-toe or something?
He's got some really interesting prospects there.
At Illinois?
Yeah. I mean, he's got a tough challenge because of the
SAT
GPA requirement. But he's managed to find a few guys, I think, from what I've spoke to him about. So the thing that I would just throw out there, probably to end this episode, really, is just that I think this is going to be a really interesting class from a point of view that if we can try and track this, look at the number of shooting guards we've got inside the top 20 here. Just look at that and see how that transitions from to college to our CBGM to the national NBGM league, the Pro League. It'd be really interesting to see how many of those get filtered out and actually don't end up in the pros, because from what I've seen looking at these guys here, there's probably 4 or 5 I think could be very, very good elite pro players possibly. And I know that's a bold statement because I'm doing that based on absolutely no ratings whatsoever. But just that class of shooting guards is just phenomenal this year.
I think there's 2 of them that are excellent prospects. Excellent. And probably more that can develop. But I gotta be 100% honest. I haven't watched how these guys develop, like once they go from this into the pro basketball game, so I can't swear to it. I think Ivan Tatum is just a bona fide superstar. I also think Gavin O'Kelly's good. Maybe Alan Prince, maybe good. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, though. But anyway, guys, that's your 5 bold predictions. We're going Holloway to Louisville. UNC doing it again. Pittsburgh falling on some hard times. And then CoachFury's predictions, which I'll let him throw out there.
Yeah, essentially the blue blood teams, so the high prestige teams, are going to have their worst recruiting season of all time in the CBGM. Difficult to know because it's the second season, but that's what I think. And the Big Ten is going to have a huge comeback season this year in terms of recruiting.
And again, despite all of the Big Ten memes, despite all of the bad behavior towards the Big Ten, I 100% agree with his theory. The Big Ten is coming back this year. You look at where all of the best prospects are and where their interest is. I don't know if it's going to be Michigan, Michigan State, Indiana, but it's going to be somewhere in the Big Ten. The Big Ten's coming back this year. Make your memes while you can. You've got about 3 days left. Once we get past that, there's no more making fun of the Big Ten that's going to be available, because they're going to have the Indy MVP elite dude. They're going to have everybody. They're going to have everybody. So, I mean, get it while you can. That's all that we've got for y'all. That's it. We got 5 bold predictions. We talked through it. We worked through it. We're about 3 hours away from the top 10 list being formally released by Chris. And let me just throw this out there. There's a possibility that I'll stream that also. I'm not sure. I got to figure out how the wife goes and how life goes. But y'all got your 5 bold predictions for this year. Hopefully they go half as well as they did last year. We'll see. Coach Fury, dude, I had an absolute blast streaming with you, buddy. Can we do it again real soon?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's try and get a couple more episodes done this season. Maybe a
Absolutely.
couple more in recruiting class. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll have to find out what the good streams are, like what generates content, right? But
Absolutely. We always want to hear what everyone wants to see. That's what we're here for, is to
that's
provide
right.
a service of interesting content that you guys want to hear about. So if you've got something that you want myself and Cards to talk about and discuss, we will certainly come on and do our best to talk on that topic.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. So, anytime there's content or anything interesting, we're down to bring it to you. But guys, like, I had an absolute blast. I'm sure that Coach Fury had an absolute blast. We got you your bold predictions. Let's see what happens. Top 10 list coming out tonight. In-home visits start, I think, Tuesday, 2 3 days away, Monday, Tuesday, somewhere in there. So we'll see how it goes, but that's all we've got for you tonight. Thank you so much for showing up. I had an absolute blast. I'm sure that Coach Fury did as well, and I will catch y'all later.